in light of the increased interest in agorism and volunteerism and this idea and concept of an exit from status mentality. There's another phrase that comes to mind: think globally, act locally. And in light of this increased interest in a world without a state, a world without a world government, hopefully, we should think about taking things into our own hands peacefully on the local level. And here's an idea for some of you involved in Occupy Wall Street, Occupy, fill in your city here, whether it's in the U.S. or whether it's not in the U.S. There is a consensus reality on the local level that I personally consider to be criminal. Using taxpayer funds to use force to take the property of others or kidnap others that are not submitting. That's why it says submit on your application for a driver's license. Submit your information here. Submit to our rules and regulations here. I believe that it's criminal in its truest form on a root level to take from others that which is not yours. Now, I don't think there's limits to that. It's not just like those that are citizens or civilians. Anyone that steals from others is encouraging a society of thievery. I was given a $300 ticket when I was seen on my cell phone, which is a very rare thing for me to drive and have a cell phone. I was just checking a voicemail. I wasn't talking. I was on a country road. There weren't any cars around me. I was in Lake Dallas. I was an hour north of Dallas, Texas. I'm not very far from the country, so I'm not even on the freeway. I'm on a 10-mile-an-hour road. I'm pulled over by a police officer who looks like, you know, he's in the military. He's got a shaved head. He's got the look down. I get a $3 ticket. I pay that ticket. Fortunately, at that time I was in a situation where I could pay the ticket. And if you don't pay your ticket, you lose your license. And I went through so much stuff in Oregon. I know what it's like to have my car towed. I know what it's like to have my property stolen from me. I know what it's like to not be on drugs, be sober, and try to keep my life on track. I also know what it's like to, have made some mistakes when I was younger. But to have your property taken from you when you're not doing anything wrong, when you're not harming others or harming yourself, it feels like being raped, and it does a lot of detrimental things to men psychologically when they're abused by other men, and they can't do anything about it. In another video, I'll designate time to address this crime of resisting police, which I think is a crime in and of itself, to expect men to grovel at the feet of other men while they're being beaten down, while they're being beaten up, while their wife's being grabbed by her hair and told to get out of the car because she did not submit or comply to the orders of a police officer. These are all telltale signs of a satanic culture. But to steer this back to the point, if we want to have change on a global level, we have to think locally. And we need to start addressing the thievery. We need to start addressing the abuse that's taking place. It's one thing to just film the police, and that's very much involved in this. People taking part in filming the police aren't just doing something for their own community, they're doing something for the larger global community. Because when we work together as a collective, even though I don't subscribe to groupthink, there is an aspect of this collective reality that we all share. I mean, we all breathe the same air to a certain degree. We're all affected by certain things to a certain degree, like Fukushima, like depleted uranium, like world wars without end. We're affected by these things. We're affected by false flag terror attacks that trick our boys, that trick our girls into war and joining the death machine. But to take this to a local level, we need to start addressing things that we can change. How do I say this? That we can more likely see tangible change in the near future. Changing the whole world, ending the wars, ending this, ending that, taking down Monsanto, large syndicates. That takes time. And I don't say that to stop what you're doing. Continue what you're doing. I will continue what I'm doing, raising awareness on certain global issues. But there are some people that are not on this path. They're all about local issues. At least that's what's in their rhetoric. and police accountability, other forms of government accountability. And I think that there should be more groups, just like there's an Occupy Wall Street page for whatever city you're in, Occupy Portland, Occupy LA, Occupy New York, Occupy Dallas, Occupy Detroit, Occupy Miami, fill in blank here. Well, what if there was a movement that was just as well organized, that was a coalition of people that have lost everything? Now, I don't mean people that have just gone into debt because of student loan debt. I'm talking about people that have lost everything, their jobs, their marriages, their homes, because they did not comply with the system, and they lost the vehicle or a license to drive a vehicle that the state actually believes is theirs. When you sign those papers to register your car with the state, that car is no longer your car. That car is the property of the government, and you are leasing your ability to drive what they think is their car on a season or year-to-year basis. When there is a local consensus reality that it is appropriate behavior for local city councils to take from the people in order for them to be able to pay themselves, in order for the streets to be paved, and in order for the police officers to be paid that are pulling people over that are driving on those roads, if they think that that's acceptable behavior, they're helping to create a climate of thievery and scumbaggery. And I mentioned this earlier. Let me finish the story. When I was pulled over and given that $300 ticket that I later paid in full, I told that judge at the very end, and I was polite. I was one of the last people to be called. And so there wasn't very many people in that room. There was one police officer, there was one woman who was a judge, she looked like she was in her late 40s, and there were several court reporters. The only person that showed emotion to the words that I'm about to share with you now was the judge. The cop and the court reporter were throwing me some really nasty, snarly, we don't like you energy. But I told the judge, look, I've only been here a short amount of time, I've got this ticket, this is my whole paycheck, this is thievery. The punishment does not fit the crime. Are you serious? I'm checking my phone for a few seconds. And of course, some of you out there are going to say, well, you can't do that because doing this causes that. Why? Because of the actions of others? That makes as much sense as saying because an AR-15 was used in the mass shooting that there can't be any AR-15s. That maybe Americans shouldn't have the Second Amendment because of this one particular case. And it's not just one case. There's several cases of people being murdered with these weapons. And in all of these cases, the official story is very, very questionable. I mean, it makes no sense, by the way, on the subject why any advocate of the Second Amendment would use an AR-15, which is currently under attack by this establishment. It makes no rational sense why any supporter of the liberty movement would do such a thing. But of course, that's what they're trying to convince people of. So let me just address that. But going back to the phone, we all have different cognitive abilities. Some people have no cognitive ability to detect bullshit or look certain things up on the internet or write a paper or launch a website or do a TV show. Or some people have no cognitive ability to actually change a tire on their car. I actually am limited on certain cognitive abilities when it comes to working on vehicles, but I do have an interest in learning more about my car, on learning how to change certain parts. We're all at different cognitive abilities. That doesn't make it right, it doesn't make it wrong, or one better than another person, because what someone lacks in one area, they may actually have a talent that others don't have, or an ability, or a certain sense, or a certain intuition. So I am not in agreement with certain laws that have been put in place because these accidents have happened. We need to make sure that you comply with this. Seatbelts is another. You know, if you're not wearing your seatbelt, you could be subjected to being pulled over. If your papers are not in order, you could lose everything because of what? Because of a seatbelt? Are you serious? I want to plant a seed. For those of you that want to get more involved in local politics, I'm serious. A whole movement could start from this. And then it could connect with other movements, but it all deals with our right to travel in this country. We live in a system now where unless you pay the big banks, i.e. the insurance companies, Unless you pay them off, they're mercenaries, the police. Many police today are modern-day mercenaries. They'll take your car off the road, and they'll remove your ability to drive. I'm looking for my license. I wanted to hold it up. I'll just pretend this is my license. This is my business card, my website and Facebook. You know, people think I'm a friggin' Texan because I have a Texas license. I was forced to get a Texas license. When I got that ticket, he saw that I had a Oregon ID. I was reprimanded in the state of Texas because I was on the road in Texas and I did not submit to paying them so I could drive on their roads. And they've got it all set up now where in Texas, oh yeah, the great, wonderful state that is going to secede from the government. That's a bright and shining example. Look, Texas has got energy independence. In Texas, there's more jobs, but Texas is also a big-time police state. Texas is not where it's at, but Texas is in a complete hellhole. There are good aspects and bad aspects of life in Texas. I'm just using this as an example. But just because Texas looks like they're going to secede and whatnot, it doesn't mean that there aren't, or the rhetoric at least. Remember who their governor is and the Bilderberg group that Rick Perry is a member of. Just remember, Texas is not a bright and shining example of freedom and liberty. There are some positive aspects of life in Texas, and there's major areas for improvement. Let me just get out that point and get to the center point, though. I don't like being told that I have to have a Texas license to drive on Texas roads. But that's not just Texas. That's other states. So all 50 states are actively taking part in the thievery and the expectation that people submit to their rules that they have set forward on the state level. And on the county level, on the city level, there are the city councils across America that are dependent, like crackheads, like dope fiends, like heroin junkies, like crack whores. Okay? Because many of these city councils are acting like whores. They are bending over and they are letting these corporations and private interests fuck them. Or rather, they are pimping out the people's resources and they are given a line of cocaine. Or they are given a brand new car. Or they are given $50,000. Fill in your vice here. And many local city governments have gotten used to this reality of getting revenue from the citizens, setting up checkpoints, setting up speed traps, and placing their mercenaries, also known as police officers, also known as men in costumes. You know, it was creepy that night in Texas going home from Dallas and seeing a police car all in black like a ninja come up on someone 90 miles an hour and then flip their lights on. I don't mean the lights. I mean their fucking lights. They were driving on the freeway without fucking lights. And fuck that. Fuck him for endangering the lives and safety of others on the road. Thank God he wasn't coming after me. And I'm not saying because I would have done something. I mean, thank God I wasn't put in that situation. I'll tell you what, there are good spirits in this universe that I think have watched my back in my travels since I left Oregon. And I had more issues, by the way, run-ins with police in my hometown of Portland, Oregon than anywhere else in this country. So don't any of you ever try to tell me that Portland is a bright beacon of police accountability, because it's not. It's not. In conclusion, I, Alex Hansery, plant a seed. If we want to change what's taking place globally, we have got to find a way to think and act locally. A great place to start, a place where I think it deserves its own movement, just like Occupy, where people come together and vote people into office that end up as mayors and city council members that advocate a more mindful economic system on the local level, a more mindful way to run city business, other than stealing from the local citizens. And I'm just going to plant one more seed here that also includes finding other ways of raising revenue outside of expecting and asking for money from the federal government, whether it be for food stamps or other. Local governments right now have to do some serious think tank work to think about how they're going to be independent from the grid, from the federal government itself. if they are to be free. Thank you so much for watching.